seconds to in few seconds. Stay connected. All right, the time is 2 o'clock, and as usual, every Saturday we are meeting here for one more learning journey. Thank you everyone for joining me today, and I hope everything is working fine technically. I welcome Amar, Divya, Durgarao, Guna, Karthik, Prema, Preetham, Shamili, Shilpa, Swati, and some of you joining in from YouTube. So thank you so much, everyone, for joining in. And this is a learning journey that we have continued since more close to 2 years now. And every single Saturday, we join here to learn something new. Today's speaker of the day, Deepak, is my colleague, my friend, good friend. We studied together in the same college from Government College of Pharmacy, Bangalore. Deepak, if you could join me here on the screen, let's see if you're here.
Hey, hi Manoj, good afternoon. Hi everyone.
Good afternoon, Deepak. Let's see if you are visible here on screen. All right, so this is Deepak, my good friend from Government College of Pharmacy.
Hey, hi everyone.
We did M.Pharm Pharmacognosy from the same college, same department, and Deepak moved to join as a medical writer. He started his career at Synchron Research Services, where he joined as a medical writer. Then he moved to Quintiles. Now Quintiles is known as IQVIA, right? So he moved to Quintiles. Then he worked with Parexel, LabCorp, and in different capacities, all mostly related to clinical trials, clinical data management, and quality control. He comes with more than 14 years of rich experience in clinical trials, specifically DCP audit, inspection readiness, and regulatory inspection support. Currently, Deepak works as a senior principal quality and compliance lead at Novartis, and Deepak is a very proud pharmacist. Despite doing, M.Pharm for pharmacognosy, he does not feel that pharmacognosy is a hindrance in career, right? So majority of pharmacy students who do M.Pharm in pharmacognosy, they're afraid that there are no career opportunities. So this is a myth buster. Deepak is here to bust that myth today to all of us. And doing M.Pharm is enough, whether you do in pharmacognosy or pharmacology or whatever. If you want to join a specific department, or if you want to start a career in specific department, it is easy today, right? And we have so much of opportunities coming up. Deepak is here to help us understand how we can get started in clinical trials and what happens in audits and inspection. So Deepak, welcome to this webinar, and thank you so much for, coming here and agreeing to share your thoughts. And we love to hear your story first before we begin with the session. Deepak, to you.
Yeah, thanks so much, Manoj. I mean, I'm still not feeling like 14 years because we recently met in last Stars Award, and we keep meeting. So, I mean, long journey, and we still remember that college first day, and then kind of an interactions. That's the story. What we still cherish that.
Absolutely.
So again, thanks everyone. Thanks Manoj for just giving me a brief introduction about myself. Maybe I'll quickly share my screen and then start about myself, and then we'll go through the slides.
Absolutely.
And before that, my extreme apologies because I know this session was supposed to be conducted on 11th of March, but unfortunately, the company policies, the conflicts of interest disclosures and disclaimers, right? So I had to get an approval, and my manager was not in the country, so there was like a lot of approvals that had to happen, right? Because we are sharing the content from the company, so probably we'll have to share that conflict of interest in incident tickets and all. We'll have to raise and get that approval. So that was the last moment that couldn't approve. So that was the reason, I had to, pull it back. But my extreme apologies for people who have registered that during that time, and, they couldn't, join in now. Apology for that.
Absolutely no problem, Deepak. We totally understand that, pharmacy is such a regulated field.
Yeah.
Your topic also signifies the same thing, right? So we
Yeah.
talk about why is audits and inspections are so important. And all of them who registered, I'll be sending the recording of the entire session to them. So I already sent an email to them as a reminder. Hopefully some of them are joining today. And if in case they're not able to join, it's perfectly fine. We'll send the recording to all of them. Perfect. So let's begin.
Let me share my screen.
Yeah, please.
Just let
Yes.
me know if you can see my screen.
Perfect. Yes, it's visible.
Okay, so just to begin about me, I think Manoj has already covered most of the things what is there in this slide. So I did my BPharm from KLE College of Pharmacy, Hubli in the year 2001-2005. And then post that, since it was in Karnataka, we have to write the PGCET. Then I have qualified in the PGCET exam. Then I've got into the MPharm Government College of Pharmacy, Bangalore, where my specialization is in the field of pharmacognosy. So I did that in the year 2006, 2008. And then maybe I'll just give a background kind of a storytelling I'll do. Then it's more easier to connect with everyone. I mean, connect with my work experience and my professional experience, and then connect with you everyone. So as soon as I did my B Farm, and then I have got into the ranking, then I was supposed to. Then the M Farm M Pharma was a decider for me that which course I'll have to select, right? I mean, it's the myth for everyone that, that's the same question everyone gets at a student life. Everyone gets the same question. So should I join pharmacology? Should I join pharmaceutics? Because pharmaceutics is something where the pharmacy, the core of the pharmacy is there. And pharmacology, a lot of people like because, it's more easier to get into the discoveries or preclinical trials or clinical trials and so on. But since I don't know, I mean, I have fallen to the M Pharm pharmacognosy based on my ranking, and then in fact, from the day one itself, I mean, I have started thinking from my orientation that, what should I choose my career? Should I end up with doing a lecturer job, or should I end up with doing some government job? Should I join a private company, or if it is a private company, should I join a herbal company? There are a lot of Himalaya companies. There are a lot of herbal companies, Semi Labs. So I was just thinking all this was coming when I was doing my M Pharm first year. And again, since Manoj has made that like breaking the myth, so I'm just giving the background of it. So when I was doing that, and luckily my project was kind of I did my project from Indian Institute of Horticulture Research Science. I did on an anti-cancer plant, where we did one tissue culture methodology to develop the plant. So my project was most of the project I did it in IIHR, that's Indian Institute of Horticulture Research Science, Bangalore. And then some of the assessment parameters, the LCMS, I did it in IASC. So it was mix of that IASC and IIHR. I did that completion. I completed that project work. And in the meantime, I was just thinking what to do. And at that time itself, the clinical trials was just coming into the phase of, it was just coming into the phase of the next level. So I think if you see clinical trials, I see that from 2000, before 2001, we haven't heard this in India. But I think it's like post 2001 where some small company started, the bioavailability bioequivalence company started, and then IQVIA started in the year 2001. I think I don't exactly remember the IQVIA, then the quintiles. It started somewhere back in 2001. I think, I believe. I'm not sure if it is wrong. At that point in time, I had a fair idea that I want to join clinical trials, but I had absolutely no idea what is clinical trial or what happens in clinical trial, what are the different roles in the clinical trials. But I think you guys are very lucky because I have seen Manoj's previous sessions, and the kind of dedication he does and the kind of communications he does with the people to onboard them and give the training to them, tell them that what are the different roles that are there, tell them that what are the responsibilities, roles and responsibilities, what are the profiles in the company, which companies are there. So I think he's doing a very remarkable in that phase of giving it a free of cost. I mean, a lot of things is there here. I mean, people need to utilize it in a right way. Then probably that will give them the right set to the path of their career. So I think at that point in time when we were doing MFARM, we really had no clue that what are we going to do, what should we do. I mean, though we knew the names, but we don't know what exactly happens, what will be the roles and responsibility, and you know, coming typically out of the lab and then doing a system-based work or laptop-based work. I mean, some people still ask me, "Are you in the IT company?" Or what is clinical trials, what is the IT company does, what is the corporate does in clinical trials, because we'll have to work with the patients, you'll have to work with the data. So what does, I mean, there are a lot of confusion. Still people have that kind of a question, especially the non-pharma background. But pharma background, I think now people are so much aware of the clinical trials. I mean, when we were there, we didn't had that much of kind of an exposure to the companies or people or profiles, all that. And I think LinkedIn was also slowly started, and though we were using, but we were not using it in a full fledged. So yeah, that was the point when I was just thinking. Then I thought, okay, let me give a try. Let me go to clinical trial. Let me see what's there in that. Since I know that I only had a choice of doing a lecturing or a herbal company where I was not much interested in that. So the other one, the left out is only the clinical trials, where I thought, like, since I have the MPharm qualification and I should be able to crack the interview. That's what I was just thinking. So that's how my journey started, and then I ended up with Synchron Research. So that was my first company, Synchron Research Private Limited, where I started with the medical writing as a job role, where I used to develop some small BAB protocols. I used to develop the synopsis for the new bioequivalence molecule, and then I used to work on ICF and CRF designing part, and then I used to write a lot of CSRs based on the E3 guidelines. So those are the things which I started from the Synchron, where I started very small. And then after that, I moved to Quintiles. Quintiles was more of my data management experience, in a mix of coding and data management, both I did. And in the Paraxel, it's much or more the same experience what I have. That was in the Paraxel. I think Paraxel was the one which I cherish a lot, because almost if you see my career of 14 years, out of that 7 years I was in Paraxel, and in the 7 years in my Paraxel, I have moved 3 roles there within the Paraxel. So we had a kind of a called as an IJP, that's called as internal job postings or internal job movement. So that's the one where I had applied for that one of the position in the quality, and then that's how I ended up in the quality and audits and inspection. I came into this business. So in from I think from 2014 onwards, 2014-15 onwards, I'm into quality, and from there on, I'm in the quality thereafter. So that was the phase where in Paraxel, I moved to another role, and from there, actually after Paraxel, I had joined Novartis. I'll tell you that story, a bit of that. So after Paraxel, I joined Novartis. Then I went back to Hyderabad, but somehow I wanted to come back to Bangalore because Bangalore was my native. Then somehow I was not getting the option of remote, and then I had to take a decision and I had to leave Novartis. I joined back in LabCorp here in Bangalore, and here I was working as a lead auditor in LabCorp. And post that, again, Novartis called me and they told me that, okay, we will give you the work from home option or the permanent kind of remote option. So that's how again I went back to Novartis. So I didn't put 2 times Novartis there. I just after Paraxel I joined Novartis, and then LabCorp, and then back to Novartis. It's like that. So overall, that's the companies which I have worked for. And then as Manoj said, I have around 14 plus of years experience. And if you consider for quality in terms of audits and inspection, I have close to 8 to 9 years of experience I have in that area. So that's all about my work experience. And then I'm married. I have a 6-year-old daughter, and her name is Dhruvi, and we are settled in Bangalore. Coming to my hobbies, I like trekking a lot. I mean, we try to discover some new places, all these night outs, all that in the terms of trekking I do. I like listening music. That's one of my hobby. And then reading novels, and I love detox drinks. So maybe might be having the question, what is this detox drink? So detox drink is nothing but it will help you to in terms of digestion, or in terms of keeping you healthy, or keeping you motivated, or those kinds of stuff. So I do kind of a detox drinks where kind of a lemon juice with added with honey, pepper, ginger, and mint, and I do lots of stuff in that, and then I make it a little bit healthy and make it perishable, and then I just have it. So that's the one of my not kind of a hobby, but I like to do that, and I keep drinking those detox drink day in and day out. So that was all about my education background, my work experience, my family life, and then my hobbies. I'll go to the next slide. Okay, so yeah, this is the topic what we are covering today. That's on the clinical trials, audits and inspection readiness. So again, please understand that I really can't give the depth of the audits and inspection readiness, but I can give an overall overview of how the audit runs in the industries, or what we do in terms of when it comes to an inspection readiness, and what we do in terms of when we come to a regulatory inspections. So I'll give an overview of that, but definitely, as I have said, in next 1.5 hour, definitely I can't cover the depth of the details of what actually I do on a day-to-day activities. But I am trying to give, since I also know that most of the audience are freshers, or they have 1 to 2 years of experience, or they want to learn what is this kind of an audit and inspection readiness. So that's what I thought, that let me give one talk on this topic. So that's me. My current role is Senior Principal Quality and Compliance Lead in Novartis. So in Novartis, I basically do kind of quality management. So where what I exactly do is that we have a kind of an incident tickets, where risk assessments we do, risk incident tickets we do. So the business operations does these, they raises these tickets, and these tickets are assigned to us. Then we work with the business and understand that what is the quality issue, what is the risk, what is the impact. So, and maybe in the next slides I'll tell more in details about that. So that's my one part of my work, my job responsibility. Other one is the audits and inspection support. Inspection support in the terms of regulatory inspection support, where we submit a lot of data to the regulatories, and then I directly work with the regulatories. I'll come through those in the next slides as well. So I go through, I work with the regulatories, on the prerequisite documents that are required for the inspections. We directly work with the EMA inspectors. I have worked with the EMA inspectors directly. We have one-to-one interactions, and then we have worked with the FDA inspections, FDA regulators. So my basically, wherever these documents or the dossiers are submitted, right? So whenever there is an inspection announcement, we will be the first point of contact in the Novartis to come in and then pitch in that, what's the inspection that's happening, what are the requirements, and who should be the front door, who should be in the back door. I'll tell you in the next slides all that. So that's my whole about my current role and responsibility within the Novartis. Okay, so coming for the disclaimer again here, the views and the opinions expressed in this document or presentation, right? These are mine on the author, and do not necessarily reflect the official policy or position of Novartis or any of its officers. So this is kind of a disclaimer. We'll have to use this as part of our conflict of interest policy. Okay. Coming for the topics, these are the topics what I'm trying to thinking to go through. Just a minute. Okay, so these are the topics what I'm planning to go through: the definitions, the We'll go through some of the basic definitions which are really required. Again, here definitions, when I'm speaking, I'm not speaking of all the definitions. I'll only speak more of what is required in terms of audits and inspections. And then what is clinical governance? What is the core of the clinical governance? Where every company will have this kind of a clinical governance a framework. It's like kind of a framework where we'll see more of details of that. And then we'll see what's the clinical quality management in terms of E6 guidelines. So again, here, whatever I talk is mainly on the guidelines, ICH, GCP guidelines, all of those stuffs. So I'll go through those next slides, and everywhere I have given the links to everything. So clinical quality management in terms of E6 principles. What does E6 principle says about clinical quality management? How should we do this clinical quality management? And then we'll talk about something about what is audit, what is its purpose, what is its objective, and then we'll go through the audit plan there. So what is the content of the audit plan? What should we consider when we are planning to do an audit? And then audit life cycle we'll cover, and then how to plan and conduct the audit, and then what are the types of audits. So that's the area of the audits. And then we'll speak a little bit about GCP inspection readiness, its purpose and its objective, and what are the different regulatory authorities that are there. And then we'll see more of a bit of GCP inspection types. What are the different types of GCP inspections? And then we'll see a bit of how the GCP inspection process will take place. Again, here, the GCP inspection depends on the regulatory also, because it's a country specific. So based on the different countries, the process might be a little bit different, but otherwise all of them follow the ICH GCP, and the framework still remains the same. And then we'll see through the slides of who will conduct these audits and inspections. That's something where you might be interested of more. And then the GCP routine findings, we'll see of what are the different routine findings. And then the gradings, the audits and inspection grading. So usually they are same, audits and inspection grading. I'll go through the next slides as and when I come. And then I will see a bit of ICH GCP guidelines, which you must know it. I mean, as much as thorough you know it, it's more easier for you to connect the dots and then assess. I mean, try to understand what happens in the entire clinical trials. Because if you know bits and pieces, and if you don't connect them and then try to join them, you will not get the overall how the clinical trial runs. So I'll just go through those guidelines. So just to start, right, I just want to give the differentiation of audits, inspection, and inspection readiness. So audits are nothing but they are the internal audits. Okay. So maybe it could be an internal audit, or it could be an vendor audit. Whereas when I tell inspection, which means it's only the health authority inspections or the regulatory inspections or the inspections, all are same. Health authority inspections, regulatory inspections, or the inspections. So they are all nothing but the regulatories are doing the inspections, or they are doing the audits. Whereas audit is nothing but it's our internal own process where we ensure that our quality management system, our SOPs, what we are working on, are all in place, and whatever the business is working based on those SOPs are executed correctly, and there are no any gaps. So that's all about that audit piece. Speak about is the internal audit. Maybe next slides we'll go through more in detail of that. Okay, so before I was thinking, like, before I go with this next slides, I was just thinking, Manoj, if we could do kind of an open session where we have some questions, because a certain level of understanding or knowledge is needed to go. I mean, if I go through the next slides also, if you don't connect these things, then it's a little bit difficult to understand. So I was just thinking, let's do an open house session where we have framed some question and answers. Let's see, how participants react and respond to that.
Absolutely. So participants watching on YouTube and also on Zoom, please participate in the open house questions. Try to answer as much as possible. Of course, we'll provide you the answer, but this is just to understand your understanding levels, and accordingly, we'll tailor the entire presentation for you, right? So thank you, Deepak, for this intro, and I'm sure many pharmacognosy professionals will be inspired by this.
right? So let's inspire them. They're kind of mostly demotivated with the opportunities that exist. And with this, let's hope to inspire them. So let's start with the open house. Try to answer as much as possible. So the first question will be this much, this one. How many principles does ICH GCP has? Please use the chat box. If you're on YouTube, you can use the chat box. If you're on Zoom, please use the chat box and answer. Let's see what you know about this. Type DNK if you don't know, and type the number of principles if you know. So Nagratna says 13, Prema 13, Divya 13, Mayur 13. All of them have said 13. Let's see if somebody has put on YouTube. No answer on YouTube yet. So there are 4 answers. All of them have put 13. So let's see what the answer is. All right. There are 13 principles, and these are the principles. Yeah, perfectly fine. So some of you have got it right. Nagratna, Prema, Divya, Mayur, Ashifa, Anshifa, yeah, Amarnath. Thank you. Let's go on to the next one. You want to say something on this one, Deepak?
No, I think, yeah, understanding these basic principles are very important. And, please try to go through these individual principles as well. Like, what does ethics talks about? What is the trial risk versus the trial benefits? Where again, we talk about the PV stuff there, risk versus benefit ratio. So go through these individual principles, which are very important. Every day when you start working in a project or a trial, everywhere you see these kind of words and then updates, and then you'll have to be really, really thorough on this, especially the E6 principle, the good clinical practice E6 principle. As much as possible, you go through them and make sure that you understand it thoroughly. Yeah,
absolutely. Let's go to the next one. As per ICH guidelines, what does QSEM stands for? Let's give around 15 seconds. And Nida provides course on GCP. That's a good one, Preetham. Maybe if you could share a link, I'll send out that link to everyone who's participating in the session today. Okay, so participants, let's answer. As per ICH guidelines, what QSEM stands for? Let's put in the chat box. Let's see how many of you get it right. Divya says quality, safety, efficacy, and multidisciplinary. Quality, efficacy, and miscellaneous. Quality, safety, efficacy, and miscellaneous. Amarnath. What about Anthony says, Selvi says quality, safety, efficacy, and multidisciplinary from YouTube. All right, so most of you got it right. Let's see what the answer is. All right, so it says quality, safety, efficacy, and multidisciplinary guidelines. Most of you got it right. All right, let's go to the next one. How many CTD modules are there for dossier submission? 5. All right. Divya says 5. What about rest? Prema also says 5. Swati also says 5. Anybody on YouTube? No one? All right. 5 modules. Amarnath says 5 modules. All right. So let's see what the answer is. Yeah, there are 5 modules. And this is the CTD triangle. Anyways, you'll get the recording of this. So please watch it later on and learn from this. Okay, perfect. Thank you all for responding. Let's go to the next one. What is Audit Trail? It is not trial, it is trail. What is Audit Trail? Slide is not running. No, slide is running very much. What is Audit Trail? Are you all able to see the next slide? The question is, what is Audit Trail?
Yes, Manoj, I can see.
All right, perfect. Preetham says series event as audit experience with dates. Okay, what about rest? So wherever there is a mismatch, Deepak will explain to us. If everybody is getting right, then we don't explain that. Yeah. All right, let's see if anyone else is giving answer. To make electronic data secure. Swati. Okay. Anybody on YouTube? No one? All right. Okay, let's see what the answer is. The answer is documentation that allows reconstruction of the course of events or data history. So, Pritham, almost correct? Yes. All right, let's see what the next one is. Which are the 4 pillars of clinical trials? Let's see who gets this. Which are the 4 pillars of clinical trials? Come on, guys.
I mean, that's most easiest one.
Okay. Sometimes we don't get the easiest ones. That is when Deepak will explain it. All right, no one, just type DNK if you don't know so that we know. We'll go to the next one faster. DNK stands for don't know, okay? Just put DNK if you don't know, and let's move on to the next one, okay? What about YouTubers? All right, let's go to this answer.
Or maybe we could have framed the question in a different way.
Different way, yeah, maybe. That's so, okay.
Yeah, these are the 4 pillars, like, whenever the clinical trial runs, these are the 4 main key stakeholders: the sponsor, the CROs or the vendors, the investigator site, and the regulatory. So all clubbed together, the successful clinical trial runs.
Perfect. Let's go to the next one. What is 21 CFR, part 11? Let's see how many of you get this one. Okay, all of you are able to see the question. What is 21 CFR, part 11? How many of you get this? Let's see. No one? Type DNK if you don't know, okay? Amarnath says electronic signatures and electronic records, 21 Code of Federal Regulations, part 11, human drugs. Is that the one? Let's see the answer. Electronic records and e-sign, Mayur. Pritham, a typo human drugs, okay? Swati says rule for drug and FDA, or Food and Drug Administration. All right, let's see answer. Even I don't know the answer. Let's see the answer. Okay, this is what part 11
that's correct. That's only the electronic records and electronic signatures. Maybe I'll give a bit background of it. Whenever we are onboarding to any of the clinical trial companies, right? So the first thing what we will do is we'll give our equivalency of our handwritten signatures, or a vetting signature is actually equivalent to an electronic signature or electronic or a digital signature. So there is a kind of a policy which runs in all of these companies where we join in, and the first day itself we'll do a signature, which means that that whatever we do a signature is vetting signature is actually equivalent to a digital signature, and that digital signature is used everywhere across all in clinical trials, because investigator sites, when they update the data, they'll have to do the e-signatures. So that's what it's all about, the digital signatures. So digital signatures everywhere we just speak. But as per the policy, as per the Code of Federal Regulation, part 11, 21 Code of Federal Regulation, part 11, we have some of the instructions for how this electronic record should be there, or what are these electronic signatures should decide. Because we can't just tell that, if we are signing it digitally, then which means that we are authenticating that data. If investigator is updating anything in the back end, in the EDCs, the electronic data capture devices or applications, whenever they do the digital signatures, right, they're authenticating that whatever the data that is entered by the site, which is nothing but the subject records or the patient records, are actually true and they are valid. So a lot of things. I mean, everyone does this, but everyone don't understand that why they are doing this when we onboard the companies.
So basically these are done to ensure that there is no tampering of data happening.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Perfect.
And there are other 21 part CFR data like part 21, part 50, part 54. A lot of data is there in the a lot of open source data is there. Maybe you can go through these. Just I have given some of the other important 21 part CFR the datas, but go through those parts and then you will get more in depth of the knowledge.
Excellent. Let's go to the next one. What is an investigator site file? Come on. If you don't know, just say DNK and we'll know when to move the next one. What is an investigator site file? Sommer says DNK, Nagratna says TMF. May I guess? Yes, you can guess. DNK, okay. All right, so let's go to the answer. And answer is this. Maybe Deepak, you could explain a bit of this.
So it mainly contains the essential documents which shows that the clinical trial site and the investigators are following the regulatory requirements. So again here, as I have said, the 4 pillars, right? The CROs or the vendors, the investigator side, the sponsor and the regulators. Everyone will work together here. Okay, whenever there is a conduct of the trial in the site needs to ensure that whatever they generate the data, that should be on par with the regulatory requirements and on par with the from the initiation to the closeout. They maintain these documents, like it could be an investigator brochure, it could be a protocol and protocol amendments, it could be an ICF, insurance statements, CVs, subject screen logs. All these data should be there in the investigator site file. So investigator site file is very, very important. Again, why I'm emphasizing this more is that whenever there is an FDA inspection happens or any of the regulatory inspection happens, right? And then when they visit the sites, they are called as investigator site inspections or investigator site audits. So whenever these audits happens or the inspections happens at the site, right? These are all requirement. This all needs to be present in the investigator site by the investigator, and these all should be reviewed. It is an auditable. These are all the inspectable documents. These are all the auditable documents. It's not that there is a sponsor molecule where the investigator site is running a clinical trial and then a regulatory inspector comes and does the site inspection. It's not the responsibility of the sponsor to give this data. So it's the responsibility of the investigator site. So investigator sites also have some specific things what they have to keep it for themselves. So that's the investigator site file.
Perfect. So with that, we conclude the open house, and we are, I think, good to go. Probably Deepak got a fair idea of the audience now, and they have a fair understanding of clinical trials. So I think this session will be definitely useful to them. And if not, some of you did not get the answer, it's perfectly fine. We are still at the learning phase. I did not know most of the answers myself. So that's perfectly fine. We are still learning, and we'll learn, and we'll definitely know the answers going ahead. Perfect. So with this, I'll close the session, slide share from my end, and Deepak, maybe you share the slides and then we'll move on.
Okay. Yeah. So basically we wanted to kind of do this session so that we understand what's the level of experience or the knowledge you already have in the clinical trial, so that it's easier for me to, go through the next slides based on that. So as I've said, some of the definitions which you will have to really know, again, here, some of these have taken it from the E6 guidelines. So I've given here all these E6 revision to addendum guidelines. So everything I have taken it, and I have also given the reference links here. So as I've said, these are very much important in terms of what based on today's topic, but there are a lot of definitions in the E6 guidelines. Maybe you just glance through once, understand what are those definitions, because until unless you don't understand these definitions, right, you really don't know how to connect the things. So, okay, let's go through them. Applicable regulatory requirements. When we say applicable regulatory requirements, it means that any laws and regulations addressing the conduct of the clinical trial of investigator product. So it could be the local regulatory guidelines, it could be the central or ICA GCPA center guidelines, it could be the business continuity plan guidelines, it could be SOPs, anything that is covering under that those guidelines and principles, right? Those are all are called as applicable regulatory requirements. So it looks like very simple. The clinical trials are conducted as per the applicable regulatory guidelines. But when we drill down and see what are these different applicable regulatory guidelines, there are a whole lot of regulatory different requirements, guidelines based on the therapeutic area, based on the country specific requirements, based on the inclusion exclusion subject specific requirements. So a lot of guidelines are there in that applicable regulatory guidelines. And then we'll talk about what's non-compliance. Non-compliance with the protocol, SOP, GCP, and any other applicable regulatory requirements by an investigator or institution or by a member of the sponsor staff should lead to prompt action by the sponsor to secure compliance. So non-compliance is nothing but anything that we are deviating from the protocol, SOP, or deviating from the applicable regulatory requirements or the GCP by anybody within the investigator site or within the member of the sponsors or the vendor or the CRO sites. They are all called it as non-compliance, and then they are the sponsor do take the actions to make sure that the compliance is achieved. Coming for the audit report, as I have said, when we do the audits, at the closure, we do an audit reporting where it's nothing but a written evaluation by the sponsor that sponsors auditor of a result of the audit. So it could be a sponsor audit. As I have said, maybe I'll go through those slides in the next one. As there are different types of audits as well. So these are nothing but whenever we conduct these audits, we generate the audit report. In that audit report, we give what are the things we did in the audit, how did the audit went, when we conducted the audit, what was the sample size which we have taken in the audits, and then what are the observations, categorizing those observations. All that comprises of the audit report. And then we'll talk about the quality assurance. I don't know. It's the I think it's the language change probably. I think it's quality assurance is nothing but you are making sure that the quality assurance department is making sure that whatever these SOPs, protocol, GCP, applicable regulatory requirements, all these are there. Those are adhered, and it's made sure that the quality is achieved. So that's the requirement of the quality assurance. I think we have it here. Sorry. The quality assurance here it's talk about trial is performed and the data are generated, documented, and reported in compliance with GCP and the applicable regulatory requirements. So that's what I was telling. It's just to make sure that whatever the data we generate, you make sure that that data is generated in compliance with the GCP and all other applicable regulatory requirements. Coming for the compliance, adherence to all the trial related requirements and applicable regulatory requirements. So we talk about a lot of like compliance, audit certificate, audit report, applicable regulatory guidelines in the next slide. So that's the reason I have put these as important definitions. So compliance is nothing but we make sure that that's been adhered. And then coming for the audit certificate. So post audit report, once we write the audit report, those observations are being given. And based on that observation, the individual businesses need to respond to those observations. They need to provide the responses for that. So once that responses are provided, then we generate an audit certificate that, that the audit was conducted. These were the observations that were given. These were the responses that were given from the businesses. And these are the corrective actions and the preventive actions followed by that. So that comprises of whole of the audit certificate. Any questions you guys have now till now?
All right, guys, any questions you can always ask, no problem. You can keep putting in the chat box if you have any questions, and we'll take the questions at the end of the session. If not, yeah.
Okay, so next, let's go for the next slide. That's the clinical governance. That's what I was telling you in the earlier slides, that clinical governance is nothing but it's kind of a framework through which any organization are accountable for continuously improving the quality of their services, mainly protecting the subject's rights and safety, maintaining high quality data integrity, and keeping the patient care as a centric of importance. Here, if you see overall clinical trials, right, what we are trying to do here is that patient care or protecting the subject's rights and safety is the highest importance in the clinical trials. And based on that only, everything else, clinical governance is being set up. So patient care or protecting the subject's rights and safety that's very, very high importance, and it's very critical important in any of the clinical trials. And most of these companies, or most of the companies, all the companies does their framework of keeping the patient care and the subjects rights and safety maintaining, making sure that all these are governed in that way. So if you see patient care as a centric, the first thing what we do is mainly we do the research and development, where we do the drug discovery, then we do the phases of all the phase of clinical trials, all that we do. And then in doing that, being openness is about you're doing a deviation, or you're doing something wrong, or you're doing something which is not there in the SOP or a guidelines, then you should be open enough to tell that this is something I'm doing wrong, or this is something I'm not aware of, or this is something which is not available. So making sure that openness is very, very much important in clinical trials, because a lot of data is generated, a lot of subjects we handle at the same point in time, a lot of trials are conducted across globally. So, a lot of data are generated. So that's the reason being openness is very, very important. If you're doing some mistake, then openly tell that this is that's the reason this whole of this quality management systems or audits and inspections is all about. Being an openness is very important. It could be an investigator, it could be an vendor, it could be a CRO, it could be an individual working staff within the sponsor company or the CRO company. Being openness is very, very, very important. So that's the reason, that's one of the pillar. And a lot of these companies values, missions, values, goals, their objectives also is depending on open culture, right? That's one of the reason that why they have kept it as an open culture or openness. A lot of companies also have a separate departments, people and people's organizations and all that we have. So that's the reason we are having that openness, and making sure that whatever the trial, the data what we generate in the trial, or if you are doing anything, again the basic thumb rule is that if you're doing anything in clinical trial which is not there, or which you are not available, then you're deviating it. Anything you do, because everything you do, it could be a data generation or a documentation or anything, everything should be in the it's in the return, and it should be documented, and it should have a guidelines. The SOP and guidelines has to define everything. And then the risk management is again the core of the patient care, because that's how we come across what is the risk, and how do we identify the risk, how do we mitigate the risk. So risk management is one of the very important topic, and E6 also covers these risk management principles. Then information management, again here communication is very important in the information management system, because since we do the clinical trials across, if there is an serious adverse drug reaction happened, or SADRs happens, we are making sure that across other sites these are getting communicated. So again here we are making sure that there is a culture, or there is a process or an application, or a communication channel or escalation channel that's open within the system, within the organization, that's been built to make sure that the information management is done correctly. And then continuous education and training. So that's the whole different story. As soon as you onboard to any of these companies, you will get a lot of trainings, you'll get a lot of education materials, you will get a lot of retrainings. So, that's one of the key areas. The learning and development is one of the key areas now in the clinical trials, because a lot of people knows a lot of things, but that's not cascaded to the next level, or to the junior level, or to any other different departments. So education and training is one of the core principles in the clinical governance, and every company strives to make sure that this learning and development team or the learning and development business is always up and running, and then they keep inspiring, they keep motivating, they keep updating the stuffs too, and making sure that it's cascaded throughout the company, throughout the trial, throughout everywhere. And then, as I have said, clinical audits, again, it's one of the core area to make sure that the trials are run as per the guidelines. And then clinical effectiveness, obviously, we talk more about there in terms of endpoints, the primary endpoints, the secondary endpoints, statistical analysis plans, and then statistical methodologies. So that's how it strengthens mainly your the clinical trial outputs, their endpoints, what is the planned one, and what you have achieved. that whole gives about the clinical effectiveness is what we are talking about. So making sure that that team is also being strengthened is one of the clinical governance pillar. So overall, if you see, the patient care is in the middle, and making sure that all these are being done to make sure that the patient's rights and safety are protected and the patient care is being done appropriately. So maybe you go to any companies, these are the basic models you will get, will go through these, and these things will be there in any of the companies. Okay, coming for the clinical quality management. Again, here, this is already there in the ICS E6 revised to version. So again, everything I have taken in these slides are there already in the ICS GCP guidelines. So mainly what does this clinical quality management does is that it mainly focuses on trial activities, essentially to ensuring human subject protection and the reliability of trial results. Quality management includes the design of the efficient clinical trial protocol and tools and procedures for data collection and processing, as well as the collection of the information that is essential in decision making or the end product or the end results or the end points. The quality management system should use a risk-based approach. So these are all definitions are already there in this E6 guidelines. So what does this quality management ensures is that whatever we are mainly to ensure that the human subject protection is there, and whatever the data is generated in the trials are reliable and are accurate and are correct, and they are as per the clinical trials. And whatever, because we do data collection in a lot of areas. As soon as the clinical trial starts, we collect the data from the investigator sites, in the hospitals, in the investigator sites, and then we process that data in the data management systems. And then before that, the medical writer is already working on the protocols, all these protocols or protocol amendments he does. That's the one piece of the medical writing team, what they does. Again, here medical writing is is a very generic term, because I'm only speaking in terms of clinical trials. So in clinical trials, medical writers are mainly responsible for writing the protocols, writing the ICFs, informed consent forms, and then writing the CSRs, writing the addendums, writing the risk-based summaries, all that they does, the medical writers. So if you see, as a overall, lot of data is generated there, and clinical quality management system is a kind of an application which uses the risk-based approach. Okay, let's see what does the risk-based approach tells about. Firstly, identify the risk. The risk needs to be identified. Who is identifying this risk? Anyone who is working in a clinical trial. Anybody who is working in, because you already know in clinical trials there are different businesses. There are data management, there is a medical writing, there is a pharmacovigilance, there is a site clinical operations, there is a clinical investigator site monitors. So a lot of departments are there which are working in one clinical trial. And anywhere, anything, there is risk. So when I when I talk about risk, what does the risk means? Risk means anything that's not being followed as per the regulations or the audit or the protocols, or by the informed consent forms, or anything that's related to a risk. It's an individual responsibility to identify the risk. That's the first thing what being educated in any of the companies. That's nothing but the risk identification. Then the next step is the risk evaluation. So as soon as this risk, okay, just before that, as soon as this risk is identified, right, there are different applications within the companies. So they, different companies uses different applications for this. As soon as the risk is identified, they'll have to raise a ticket. As I have said, they'll have to raise a ticket for that. That's called as an incident tickets or any kind of a ticket. And then once that is done, then the whole of the team comes, identify which are the impacted businesses, whether it's only the data management or whether it's only the PV, whether it's clinical operations, whether it is a regulatory department. So first they will try to understand is that what is the risk, what are the different businesses needs to be involved. So that's nothing but the systemic evaluation or the systematic evaluation or the risk evaluation, mainly to investigate what is the impact in the different businesses, or a trial, or a data integrity, or a safety, or end results, whatever is that, or endpoints. We'll try to investigate that. We'll try to evaluate the risk, and then do a complete investigation, and then do an impact assessment for that. And then you impact at a trial level, whether there is a risk in one trial, or a different trials, or a global trials. And then we also do a kind of a systemic trials. Systemic trials are nothing but you anticipate these risks, like especially the protocol deviations, the PDs, and then especially if I have to tell one example is about the unblinding. So unblinding is again one of the systemic issues. So we'll try to evaluate what are the different systemic, whether it's a systemic issue, what are the trials that got impacted, all that details we evaluate in the risk evaluation. So a lot of time is gone there, a lot of departments are involved. So that's the area of the risk evaluation. And then next is the risk control or mitigation. So now you have identified the risk, you have evaluated the risk, you have evaluated the impact assessment. Next is how do we mitigate it or how do we control it? Whether you are changing some process, whether you are giving. So again here, whenever we come across the mitigation or the fix, right? We categorize these into three areas: the people, process, and technology. So error could be, the fix could be, again here, understand the root cause. Whether the root cause is related to people specific, right? Whether it's whether it's related to a technology specific or a process specific. Once we identify that, then it's easy to identify a mitigation plan for it. If it is a human individual, then try to understand that why it's an individual, whether he has not got the training correctly, whether he's not aware of it, he's doing a multitasking, and he has done that as a risk, he has done that as a issue. So here again, a lot of different technologies, a lot of methods we are using here in terms of control. We first try to understand that whether it's coming from the human error or the process error or the technology error. Process error, again, we try to identify the gaps there, and we try to revise those control documents. That's the area of fixing the process perspective. And then there is also some technology, because since we work in clinical trials, we work on a lot of technologies, right? So we also try to understand whether there are system-based issues, there are bugs. So a lot of bugs will be there, a lot of we programmed listings, we do program codes, generate those data. So a lot of things we does that. So is there a issue there? So again here, identifying the risk, evaluating the risk, and risk control. So identify there whether it's a human or a process or a technology. And then risk communication. So once you did all this, make sure that this is being communicated to the businesses. So whether it could be across trials, if it is only trial related, across functions, or across business. And then periodically you do the risk review. So make sure that you're doing a risk review of these. We mainly call it as effectiveness reviews or effectiveness checks, to make sure that whatever you have identified as a risk, right, those are not a reoccurrence. So mainly we look into the reoccurrence or the risk is fixed, and then we do a periodic risk review. And then risk reporting. So here we basically use different technologies or applications. So there could be like Viva quality management system. It could be a TrackWise. So this is the applications what I was telling. So again, going back here, risks are identified. They are logged into these applications. Then the risk evaluation is done. The mitigation is done. The communication part is done. And then the risk review is done. So that's all about the risk, based on the quality management approach, based on the risk-based approach. Okay, so let's go through now what does these audits means, what is its purpose, and what are its objectives. So audit is nothing but a systematic and independent examination of the trial-related activities and documents to determine whether the evaluated trial-related activities were conducted and the data were recorded, analyzed, and accurately reported according to the protocol, sponsor standard-specific guidelines or SOPs, GCP, and the applicable regulatory guidelines. So that's what I was telling you. These 4 or 5 words will come across everywhere, whether it's audit, whether it's quality management system, whether it's inspection, whether it's inspection readiness. Everything we do in terms of audits or inspection readiness, we are making sure that whatever the data is generated in the clinical trial, right, they are in compliance with these SOPs, these GCP principles, as well as the applicable regulatory requirements. Applicable regulatory requirements, again, it could be a local, it could be a central, it could be the BCPs. All that is being involved here. And if you see the purpose of an audit is nothing but the purpose. If you see, it's a routine part of QA adherence check. So as I have said, the QA department does these audits and checks and making sure that, these are adhered and making sure that there is no any risk in the trial. Serious or repeated CIP deviations or clinical investigation protocol deviations. So whenever there are if a serious clinical protocol deviations are seen, or a repeated or a serious one, then we do the audits. Whether there is a suspicious or a fraud or a complaint that's received within the organization, then the audits are conducted. So again, as I've said, audits, sponsor also conducts audits on vendors and CROs. I have that in the next slide. I'll talk about more on that. So there, maybe, when you're working with when we are working with some vendor, or you're working with a CRO, or you're working with some alliance partner, and there is some fraud or complaint or suspicious, something is received, then it triggers to an audit. And then it's requested or suggested by a regulatory authority. So sometimes it also happens that, when the sponsor gives the contracts of clinical trials to some of the CROs, right? As part of their contract itself, they will be having in the contract that these audits need to be conducted, because I'm giving my molecule to you to run a clinical trial as a sponsor, and then you have to make sure that you internally do an audit, and then you report me those observations and how the trial is running, all that. So it could be a requested audit, or it could be a part of your contract in case if it is a CRO and sponsor contractual agreements, all that is being run. And then if you see the objective, so what are we trying to achieve in this objective? Mainly to evaluate if the trial or a process is conducted and in compliance with the protocol, the contracts on the vendors, SOPs and work instruction guidelines, GCP guidelines, and the applicable regulatory requirements. So I hope it's a bit clear now that why we are conducting these audits. Okay, so let's see what's the audit life cycle talks about. So the first thing is, what are we trying to achieve? I mean, in the audit, what are we trying to achieve? Mainly to see that the guidelines are adhered, the evidences or the documents are generated, the outcome is evaluated correctly, and the documentation is done correctly. So that's the main thing. What are we trying to achieve? We make sure that all these are being audited. And then, are we achieving it? So let's say there is a clinical trial run, and then the data collection starts. Are we collecting the data as per the protocol? Are we collecting as per the protocol instruction guidelines? Are we collecting, are there any protocol deviations? And then essays are submitted directly to the ECs, and then the regulatories, all that we see. So what audit is like, we make sure that, are we achieving that? Suppose say that if we are not achieving it, then there is something problem, then there is some issue, whether it's a process issue, there's a technology issue, or the people issue. That's how we evaluate. And then, why are we not achieving it? Suppose say that if you're not achieving it, then, as I've said again here, there is a process gap, there is a training requirement for the individuals, there is a performance issue of an individual, or if it is a system-based issue, then it's a system issues or the bugs or all that. And then can we do something to make it better? Then the question comes that, so now we know what we have to generate. As per the guidelines, the protocol needs to run. We have to generate the evidences. We have to make sure that the outcome is being generated or the outcome is coming in, and we are documenting those. And then, are we achieving it? Yes. If you're not achieving it, then what is it? Is it the process gap? Is it a training or a performance issue? Then can we do something to make it do it? Can we do something to make it a little bit more better or better? Then let's do the process redesigning, the SOP rewrite, additional guidance requirements, and then develop some best practices. If it is human, then again the retraining, all that happens. And then, have we made things better? So as soon as we understand that, once we make sure that we have done the fix, we have done the re-engineering, we have done the redesigning of these SOPs, rewriting it, or providing trainings, have we made things better? So now we make sure that here the CAPAs are implemented correctly. So CAPAs means nothing but the corrective actions and the preventive actions. So I'll talk about that in the next slides. So CAPAs are implemented correctly, the effectiveness checks are being done, and then risk is assessed. And then if there are known bugs, then we do kind of a summary for those bugs. And then, is there any learning outcomes? So those learning outcomes, again, it's being shared. So that's whole about the audit life cycle and what we are trying to achieve. Okay, so let's go to one of the audit plan. So audit plan is one of the very important critical document whenever you are doing an audit. Okay, and this is one of the first document that's been generated by the quality assurance team or by the lead auditor. Okay, so let's see how actually works, how this works in the companies. Okay, as I have said, audit is an internal audit. Okay, the auditors are from the internal team, again part of the QA team. So if you see, there is kind of a master audit plan. So every year, right, we do kind of a risk assessment. So as I have said, if you go back, we do kind of a risk assessment. So what we do risk assessment is that, is this business doing correctly, or is this role and responsibility, are they doing it correctly? Are they having training correctly? Or is there any new team that's coming up, and they are newly trained, and then are they doing it correctly or not? So master audit plan is nothing but, for that particular entire year, we decide that what are the different types of audits we'll have to conduct in that particular year. So that's nothing but the master audit plan. So master audit plan those data comes from the risk assessments. So risk assessment, what we do, we kind of frame some questionnaires and then we send those questionnaires to the individual business leads or the business heads, the vice presidents, all those peoples we send, and then we collect these data. Based on that data, then we see, is there a risk there? Then we categorize them based on the risk scoring. We categorize them. Again, all this happens in the application. Okay, it's not that we do it at an individual level. So all this happens in the application. So once these data we collect, right, then we do a risk ratio or risk impact assessment of that. And then if we assess that, okay, this departments need to be audited, or this team needs to be audited, or this particular area or this particular area needs to be audited, then based on that, the master audit plan for that entire year is being developed. So that's the first point of the master audit plan. Then once the master audit plan is done, then the lead auditors are assigned. So what does the lead auditor will do is that he will start communicating. So based on the scope, again, all the data, he will get it from the master audit plan, that what is the risk, why are we trying to do an audit, so what is the scope of the audit, what are the samples we need to use in the audit. So all that information is already getting that in the risk assessment summary. Then the lead auditor will take there, and then firstly he will do is, in the audit plan is nothing but it's a document content. Okay, in that the first thing is identifying the lead auditor and then the scoping. So what should be the scope, which department we are planning to do the audit, and what are we doing the audits, what are the different roles and responsibility we are trying to do the interviews. All that is there in the scope. Okay, and then sample considerations, whether we are doing a trial specific audit, whether we are doing a process specific audit, or whether we are doing a vendor audits. So all this is being done here. The audit plan will have all these details. It has the scope, it has the sample considerations, whether we are doing it again here, if we are doing kind of a multi trial audits, right? So what we do is, when we are doing a multi trial audit, say that we are doing for 10 trials audits, right? What we do is we select these 10 trials based on the different therapeutic area, based on the different geographical regions where they are being conducted, based on the phase of the trials, based on the stage of the clinical trial, whether it is in the conduct phase or whether it is in the ongoing phase, or the just it's getting onboarded, or in progress stage, or a conduct stage, or a closeout stage. So all that parameters we consider, and then we decide on the sample sizes. Again here, when we decide on the sample sizes, we'll have a lot of communications that we'll have to do, because we'll have to share that, okay, these are the trials which have been identified for the audit, and then those team will become active. They will have to give us the time that when we will have to conduct these audits, and then they have to respond back to us. So a lot of communication that goes within that piece. And then in the audit plan, we also make sure that what are the different SOPs. Again here, as I have said, based on the scope, based on the sample consideration, the SOPs are being defined. So if I'm doing a data management audit, obviously I will not select a SOP which is not related to a data management. If I'm doing a pharmacovigilance audit, then I will make sure that all the PV related SOPs are being formulated within the audit plan, and we are making sure that those SOPs are being reviewed by the auditor, because we'll have to again make sure that The trials are conducted in terms of protocol, in terms of ICGCP guidelines, in terms of regulatory guidelines. And then all that details are there in that. And also we have in the audit plan, we have what are the planned interviews that we are doing. What are the roles we are doing the interviews. In the interviews, we'll ask them that, how do you in your roles and in your role and responsibility, what do you do every day? How, do you get the trainings every day? I mean, do you have the sufficient trainings or not? And where do you document these trainings? All sorts of questions we ask them during the interviews, and making sure that the auditee is totally aware of what the process is doing, his understandings, whether he knows it, and whatever the documents they generated, we ask them to give those documents for us for review. And then that's nothing but the audit conduct. So we conduct those audits, and then we also define the timelines. So timelines is again very important. Timelines means the day from the day when the audit starts until the reports is audit report is generated and audit certificate is generated and all those kappas are being fixed. All that is about the timeline. So timelines is also there as part of the audit plan. So mainly audit plan is nothing but very important document that covers a lot of data what we do in terms of audit conduct. So it has a lead auditor details, it has a scope, it has a sample consideration, whether we are doing a trial specific audit, whether we are doing a process audit, whether we are doing a vendor audit. Again, vendor audit here, it's again a very big scope. You have a big team is there where we mainly focus on the vendor audits. So when we talk about vendor audits, which means that the entire vendor audit we do, which means that it includes the facilities, it could be an hiring policy, it could be HR policies, it could be any SOPs that are governed by the vendors. And then what are the retention policies? How do they retain the employees? Then all that stuff. Lot of business continuity plans, checks, facilities. Even we check in terms of electronic data archival. All that is being there. So scope and sample consideration in any of the audit plan is one of the core core document. The most accurate you write the audit plan, the most diligently you're going to get what you're trying to achieve in the audit. What are you trying to review? What are we trying to achieve? All that is being there. So that's the whole about the audit plan. Let's see now what's the audit conduct. Okay, so audit conduct has kind of a different phases. So the first phase is about the audit preparation and then audit notification. So as I have said, audit preparation is nothing but you plan the audit plan is being finalized. All that samples, what we are planning the samples, whether we are doing a trial specific, and then what are the SOPs, what should be the team, whether the team are aware, all that we do in the audit preparation. Once the audit preparation is done, then the next step goes to the audit notification, where we send to the department that these are the audit scope, this is the audit scope, this is the audit timeline, and then this is what we are trying to achieve. So that's nothing but they will cascade that to the others, to the trials. Once that is being done, then we do kind of a prerequisite documents. So basically, based on the scoping, we ask these documents like provide us the protocol, contractual agreements, a lot of documents we ask as a prerequisites. Then before conduct itself, we start reviewing these prerequisite documents. And as part of that, their CVs, their JDs, and then training certificates, all are auditable documents. So again, I don't want to talk more about this, but I know you all are aware of it because your CV, again, CV is nothing but your company specific CV. Okay, so every company will have to generate these CVs, these JDs, and then training certificates, or the audit training records, auditable training records. So all these also we'll review in this audit. So any audit, CV, JD training compliance is always a default review. Once that is done, we ask this as part of the prerequisites and make sure that these are being provided to us by the business where we are planning to conduct an audit. And then once that everything is done, then we start with an opening meeting where we tell that what we are planning to do, what is the scope of the audit, how many days we are going to conduct this audit, and what are the interview plans, what we are planning in this audit, and then what are the timelines, and how is the closing being done, when is the report being generated. All that we talk about in the opening meeting. Then we conduct the interviews, as I said in the previous slide. We conduct the interviews with the roles and responsibility. We try to understand that is there any gap in the process or within the subject, within the person, or gap in the technology. All that we try to understand in the interview process. So usually in the interviews, the business leads or the heads, they give us kind of a storytelling or a slide deck summary of what their team does, how many people are working in that team. All that is there in that interview process. And then we do a closeout meeting where we have conducted the audit now, and then we have identified some of these gaps and some of these findings, and then we discuss those in the closeout meeting, that these are the observations, or these are the comments, or these are the observations what we have identified after we conducted the audit. And then in those observations, we categorize it. I'll speak about that in the next slides. So we categorize them, whether it is a critical finding or a major finding or a minor finding, or it's just a comment observation. All that is being done in our closeout meeting. And anything that's the business has some justification that needs to be provided, that okay, I don't agree this as an observation, then we have to justify that why we are giving that as an observation. So again, here the lot of communication that happens in that closeout meeting, and then post that everyone is getting adhered to it, and then we generate an reporting audit report is generated. And then based on that audit report, the observations are being worked by the business, and then they do corrective actions and the preventive actions for those observations. And then there is an audit closure, and then the audit certificate is generated. So that's the whole set of audit conduct. I know it's too much for you people to really understand it, but as I've said, I can't tell everything into hours, but I'm trying to give an overview of what you guys need to know, because you as soon as if anybody asks, also you'll be easy. It'll be easy for you to tell that what is the audit, why the audits are conducted, how the audits are conducted. So again, here I'm not going in depth, because a lot of people have in audits itself, right? They have a lot of expertise, like a lead auditor for some particular business only. So they'll be working only on those businesses, especially the IT, information technology related applications, or there is a lot of scope in computer system validation audits, where a lot of applications we utilize in the clinical trials, whether they have IQ, OQ, PQ, UAT is being done. All that stuff is also one of another area of audit. That's nothing but the computer system validation audits. So audit is very huge, and any company will have a lot of scope in these areas. Okay, so let's see now what are the type of audits. Some of the routine audits are like data management audits, database programming audit, statistical programming audit, protocol audit, investigator brochure audit, investigator manual, CSR, clinical monitoring audit, pharmacovigilance audits, ISA audits, and then that's nothing but the investigator site audits and the project management audits. So these are nothing but the routine audits that are nothing but that's coming from the that since we already know that suppose say that there is some group of team is going to another location to do a setup of that team in that location. So those are nothing but we try to identify that okay, this could be one of the area of an audit where we want to make sure that the proper knowledge transfer is given to them, knowledge transition is happening, KT is being conducted, contract is being done, everyone has signed off that document. All that we do in terms of the routine audits. So it could be a data management audit, it could be a database programming audit. Again, here these are all coming from the master audit plan. So there will be like, and in the master audit plan there will be like a routine audits where to make sure that everyone is following the protocol, the regulatory requirements that's been done. We make sure that those routine audits are conducted. Coming for the triggered or for-cause audits, those are nothing but the risk assessment, complaints, or requests which are being received. As I said earlier, the risk assessment is done, the risk scoring is done, and then based on that risk scoring also, these trigger audits we do. And then based on the complaints we receive and based on the requests also, these trigger audits are conducted. System-based audits, there's nothing but the CSV audits, the computer system validation audits. We mainly look into the qualification audits and the requalification audits. So if it's already the application qualification is already been done, already been generated, then they will be having the requalification audits. So say that every year or every 3 years a requalification audit needs to be conducted. Again, those data and all the system owners itself will give us all these details, whether when the last qualification was done or when the requalification is due. All that will be available. The data will be available with us, and based on that, the system audits are conducted. And then I talked about the vendor audit. So vendor audit, again, that's a huge area. Vendor audits have more scopes in sponsor companies, because in sponsor companies, vendors are nothing but the CROs are also called as the vendors, as well as their affiliations are also called as vendors, as well as we do a lot of labs, central labs, local labs, different vendors we work with. So even those vendor audits are being conducted by the sponsors. And then that's another, as I've said, that's another area of the expertise, and the whole vendor audit is happening. Then we'll talk more about the ETMF audits, so electronic trial master file. So you all know, I hope you all have that basic knowledge that how data is generated in the clinical trial, the data is generated in the electronic data capture systems. There are applications, and then the documents are generated, and then those documents are being signed off, and they are being shared in the ETMF, or they have been archived in the ETMF. So ETMF audit is one of the key area where we specifically do the trial master file audit, where we make sure that those ETMF, the trial specific ETMF is being adhered, it's compliant in terms of whether it could be a naming, it could be a format, it could be a template that's being used, the guidelines or the work instruction guidelines, or the template being utilized for that particular trial. All that in-depth ETMF audits is also being done. So again, here there is a lot of scope. I have just named some of these here. So that's the whole about audit. So just before moving into GCP inspection, I'll just pause for 2 minutes and ask if there is any question. Maybe Manoj, if you give me a 2-minute break.
Absolutely, Deepak. So participants, meantime, Deepak wants a break for 2 minutes. If you have any questions, please put in the chat box, or you can raise your virtual hand for interaction. You can just raise the hand, and then I'll unmute, and then we can also discuss, no problem. And then we'll continue after a few 2 minutes of break. Questions, type Q in the chat box, and then I'll unmute you. Or NQ, type no questions, or NQ. Let's see if you have any questions. To me, it's a completely new topic. So I'm learning a lot of things. I'm making so much of notes here, sitting here. I hope you are doing the same. Are you learning something? Yes. So much of new things to learn, yeah? Perfect. Thank you, Amar. So much of learning is happening today. I was not aware that it is so complicated. The whole process of audits and inspections is so complicated, and it involves so much of steps. I had just learned few blogs from some blogs, and it was not so clear. But then today it has become very, very clear. All right. Any questions from you? Let me know. Or else we'll move to the next one. Type any questions in the chat box. You can put in the chat box. Let's see if you have any questions in mind.
Manoj, I'm back.
All right. Perfect. Deepak, you're back. Maybe we'll... Just curious to know how long or often takes place in clinical trials.
Yeah, I mean, that's what, as I've said in the earlier itself, right? So in 2 hours, definitely, I really can't cover, but I was just thinking to give an overview. Again, here, I'm trying to give an overview. This is a very vast, I mean, in fact, now the QA or the quality governance model within the E6 or the GCP or the clinical trials has given a lot of scope. And at each trial, I mean, each level, the regulations are so strong, so policies driven. I mean, it's not that easy to, be in the clinical trial, generate these data until unless you're subject to your justifications or you're ready with your justifications.
Yeah. And typically, what is the time duration taken, Deepak, for one audit to happen in clinical trials?
So for preparations, it will take a bit of time, but audit conduct, it depends on the scoping of the audit. Suppose, say, we are planning to conduct a multi-trial audit. Suppose, say, like we are planning to conduct around 8 to 10 trials, then it is typically 5 to 7 days. If it is an ISA audit, it's typically 3 days, because in ISA audits, you will directly go to the investigator site and then do the investigator site audit. So as I've said, you have the investigator site files there. You will have to review that. You basically will review the investigators' CV, their trainings and their knowledge, and then how many trials are conducted in that site, how many trials had participated in that in that particular site, whether they have got the approvals of the ECs, ICs, all that. So a lot of stuff we do there. So usually this investigator site audits, ISA audits are typically 3 days. There are some complex audits. There was one audit which I had run for 1 month. There were 3 auditors. One I was the co-auditor in that. There was one lead auditor and 2 co-auditors. So there were totally 3 auditors in that, and it was a month audit.
Wow.
So you can just imagine, how much data we generate, how much reports we generate at the end of the trial. That was across business, across sponsor.
Absolutely, yeah.
So again, here the internal audits will make sure that we are ready for inspection. We are ready for the trial because we generate these data, we do these dossiers, we submit these dossiers to the regulatory as an IND to get the approval, to make sure that that molecule is going to the subjects and for their benefits. So we do a lot of stuff here, and then a lot of data is generated. Yeah. So again, as I have said, to just give that background, audits are mainly to ensure that they are in compliance. The trials are conducted in compliance. So now let's come to GCP inspections. So as I have said, GCP inspections are nothing but the regulatory inspections or the health authority inspections. That they are nothing but the different regulatory entities. So each country will have these different entities, and more as a larger chain, it's nothing but the GCP principles that drill down to the individual country specific country specific guidelines. And then some of these guidelines, they utilize them, and then they have these regulatory bodies mainly to make sure that whatever the data we generate, you all guys know, right, already. Suppose say that if I want to market a drug as a NCE, new molecule, and I apply for an NDA as part of the dossier, new drug application. And then if I want to sell the product, the drug, right? You will have to have the country specific approvals and regulations. So based on country specific also, you'll have to submit this data. It's not that I generate the data and if I submit it to DCGI or a CDSCO, I can't market that in the US, right? So US FDA I'll have to submit the same data to US FDA. I'll have to submit the same data to PMD. I'll have to submit the same data for other regulatory guidelines. So everyone I'll have to approve. But overall, if you see, it's the saying that if the FDA and EMA is getting us approval, then most other country specific approvals are much more easier because we see that FDA and EMA are the one most regulated. I mean, the people with highly experienced, more than 20 plus years of experience comes there, and then they generate they review they do the inspection, and then they provide the adherence. So once that's being done, for the individual different countries, getting the approval is much more easier. So hope you are all aware of that. If I want to market in 57 countries or 53 countries, all those 53 countries will have to submit the data. And if there is any change in one protocol, suppose say that there is something which we want to give as an addendum as part of the dossier submission, then that addendum has to again go back to all the 53 countries where you are submitted already. So it's a complex one. So yeah, because there are a lot of teams that are working on that. Okay, let's come back to the topic. GCP inspection. Again, coming back to its purpose and objective. Again, the purpose and objective is almost the same thing. If you see again here, to safeguard the right, safety, and well-being of the trial subject, to verify that the quality and integrity of the clinical trial data submitted to the regulatory authority, because we submit that data to the regulatory authority, so they want to understand that what is the quality and the integrity, how the quality management system was done, how the trial data was generated, where the trial was run, all that they look into those aspects. And also to assess the compliance to protocol and applicable regulatory guidelines and standard operating procedures for the clinical trial. So the objectives and the purpose, more or less likely, remains the same as that of the audits. So audits are more of an internal. GCP inspections or the health authority inspections or the regulatory inspections are nothing but the regulators comes to whatever the dossiers what we submit as part of the trial submissions. They do inspect those and then they give us the approval. And that's been done by the regulators where you have applied or you have submitted that particular dossier. So the act by the regulatory authorities of conducting an official review of documents. It could be a documents, it could be a facilities, records, and any other resource that are deemed by the authorities to be related to the clinical trial, and that may be located at the site of the trial, at the sponsor, and at the contract research organization facilities, or at any other establishments deemed appropriate by the regulatory authorities. So it's very much clear. I mean, again, this statements or the definition is again being taken from the E6 guidelines. So the regulators are they can check anywhere. They can go to the CRO, they can go to they can come to the sponsor company, they can go to their the vendor partners where we have partnered with to get some of the data. I mean I can give a lot of examples. We did one in my previous organization. We did one video gaming trial. We did one squint eyes trial where a part of that was that they have to do the video, they have to play that video game, because that was basically on the squint eyes, the end results what we were looking for. And it was like, they have to play a video game, and that video game data is directly generated at the backend using the data analytics and then the data warehousing, and then those data has been captured and that data has been reviewed. So just imagine how complicated it is. I mean, the application was built for it. So it's like that complicated. So the regulators are, they are deemed to go and conduct the review at anywhere. It could be our alliance partner, it could be our vendor partner, it could be a sponsor, it could be a CRO, or the investigator side. Anywhere they can go and they can conduct these regulatory inspections. So if you see the purpose again here, to make sure that there is a compliance with the protocol, compliance with the applicable clinical trial and clinical research material regulations, then ICH E6 guidelines, and then applicable sponsor SOPs or guidelines or CROs or vendors or site standard operating procedures of the clinical trial. So everywhere you only see the stuff of SOPs, regulations, guidelines. Okay. So again here, inspection readiness and actual regulatory inspection happens within that span itself. So inspection readiness is nothing but we know that we are submitting the dossier or we are submitting the documents, and there is a chance of the inspections. Then we do a inspection readiness. So that's nothing but within the sponsor company or within the CRO company, they does this inspection readiness. Inspection readiness is nothing but we are making sure that before inspection is hit, we are ready with our inspections, and we know that what are our flaws in the clinical trial, whether we'll have to create some storyboards for it, whether we have to create some, if there are known bugs, all that we do. So let's see what we do. We mainly see that what are the inspection risks. So mainly inspection readiness is to understand that what could be the risks for inspections, what are the already the issues that has happened in the trial, because you all guys know how the clinical trial runs. In a trial, a lot of people will be working on, a lot of transition happens, a lot of people leave the company, a lot of people join the company. There are some trials which work for 5 years, 7 years, and just imagine in 7 years how many people would have worked on it, how much would have been the background of it. That's what it's all about audit trail, which we talk about. That's how we generate those audit trail reports. Okay, so we'll try to assess in the inspection readiness that what are the inspection risk, know the project team, more interactive sessions. So what we do is they conduct the inspection readiness communication meetings, understand what are the project team consists of. That team will have all the team within that clinical trial. It includes the project management team, it includes the regulatory team, PV, data management team, medical writing team, the backend team, clinical operations team. All that will have that team will be comprised of all that, and we try to try to know each other, that because we'll have to work with each other very closely when as soon as the inspection is hit and the regulatory inspectors comes and then they start doing the inspections. And then be prepared, aligned, and aware of the regulations, SOPs, and the procedures. Again, here, as I've told, in the span of 5 years to 7 years, if a trial is running, A lot of SOPs would have got updated. A lot of changes would have updated. Then we also have to do the impact assessment of these SOPs, all that we do. And then we also do our mock interviews preparations. So, again here, as in audit, even interviews happens in the regular in the inspection readiness, where we prep them, and in the GCP inspections or the regulatory inspections, the directly they may work with the individuals who have worked on those trials. It would happen like they want to interview them as well. So in order to do that, we make them that we make sure that we do a mock interviews with them, because we know what are the things what we have to review, or what are the probable questions what they might ask. So all that we make them that they're prep ready for it. So as I've said, mainly to do the prepare the storyboards, quality issues and kappas within that trial. Suppose that a trial might have multiple quality issues. So make sure that those quality issues are closed, kappas are addressed, all that we make sure team of compliance is being there. And then we also check the previous health authority findings, back referencing. That really helps us to understand that. Suppose that, we know what USFDA and EMA or PMDA or MHRA, what they are asking, we already know some of those findings. We have already got them. So we now ensure that whatever the trials, what we are submitting now, we do a back referencing of that and make sure that those previous health authority findings are already addressed, they're already in place, they're already fixed, and we don't want a refinding again, the same thing. We don't want to get a finding. Then we also work on the document prerequisites. So the same way the audits for the audits, or document prerequisite is there. Like the same way, even the GCP inspections or the regulatory inspections, they will send out the list of prerequisite documents. So usually in case of EMA, we update that in the Edura link. They will provide us all the details, like where you'll have to submit, by what time you'll have to submit. They will give us the stipulated timelines. So within those timelines, the list of prerequisite documents will have to complete, and we'll have to provide that. And then conduct mock interviews, review CVJDs and training compliance, and then project organization chart, and then conduct regular meetings. So all this we do in terms of making sure that we are ready for the inspection. And as soon as the regulatory inspectors hit the inspections, if they ask any questions, we know we have already prepared the storyboards for that. Okay, you take the storyboard. These are the storyboards what explains that, what is the issue, how did we overcome on that, what are the total quality issues that has happened. So all that is there ready with us. So that's the main inspection readiness. So again, here, if you consider the timelines for an inspection readiness, before the trial submission of 3 months, we start doing this readiness. Before the trial is getting submitted, suppose that in 3 to 6 months the trial is getting submitted, then we start preparing the inspection readiness. So that's how we monitor those timelines. Okay, these are some of the regulatory authorities what I was talking about the earlier. So Australia, we have the TGA authority. Canada, you have Health Canada. China have a different one. Europe, you have EMA. Germany, and in India, you have CDSCO. In the UK, you have MHRA. In USA, you have FDA. So like this way, in Singapore, there is a health science authority. In this way, based on the countries, you have different regulatory authorities, and whatever the trial what you want to submit, and if you want to market your product there, then you will have to get the approval of that particular phase trial or the overall trial, and then the new drug application also has to be submitted. So that's how I was telling. So now hope you're understanding that where am I connecting this with the 5 model dossier submissions what I've talked about. So in that 5 model, go through that 5 models, what model 1 says, what model 2 and 3 talks about, what 4 and 5 talks about. So model 1 and 2 talks about mainly of these different administration documents that we'll have to submit to the individual regulatories as per the country specific. So there are a lot of things. Regulatory is one of the core area where they largely work on the dossier submissions, the regulatory department, all this. They take care of the approvals, the CT approvals, clinical trial approvals, the marketing approvals, the import license, export license. A lot of things they does in the regulations. Okay, so go through that 5 models. That will give you an overview of what needs to be taken care of. So this is about the regulatory authorities, which I have named it some of the few which are like kind of an important. So as I've said, for the different countries, you have different regulatory authorities as well. Okay, coming for the types of GCP inspections. Again, here you have routine GCP inspections, triggered GCP inspections, and pre-marketing approval applications GCP inspections. Routine GCP inspections, they may come at any point in time. If you are a company, whether it could be again a CRO or a sponsor or a vendor or anything, they can routinely come and check the GCP inspection, and it couldn't be a kind of a submission based. It could be a routine one. Then you have a triggered GCP inspections where the complaint is received. Usually in routine GCP inspections, they give the notification that the GCP we want to conduct the inspection, and then they come. Whereas in triggered inspections, there is no any notification. They can just walk down, they can just come, and then they can do the inspections. That's nothing but kind of a triggered GCP inspections. So you can see, I mean, there are a lot of companies. You may go through those legacy CROs within India or across different global areas. Know how these GCP inspections, trigger GCP inspections happened in their companies, and they were not able to suffice those data, or they could not justify that the trial was conducted in an ethical way. And a lot of companies have closed on, and then it's very serious. I mean, what we are talking is like the company's core principle and the core business we are talking about, the quality. So triggered GCP inspections can happen based on the complaints or the requests or anything like that. And pre-marketing approval application GCP inspections are nothing but these are the submission applications. So as soon as we submit the data, the dossier, then the pre-marketing approval process starts, and then the GCP inspection starts. Again, GCP inspection, it could be any of the regulations where it could be a country specific. Okay, just I've given an overview of this GCP inspection process. A notice of GCP inspection is sent to the inspectees at least 30 working days. So again, here for some, like for triggered, this may not be applicable. For triggered, they can come at any point in time. But usually now 30 days is not applicable. So usually this happens like 15 days to minus 0 day. It happens like that. Minus 15 days to minus 0 day. It happens where just before 15 days, the notice has been given by the inspector, by the regulatory departments, and then they conduct these inspections. Then the inspectee should submit a GCP inspection dossier to health HSA, that's nothing but the health authorities, within 15 working days, and on the receipt of the notice of the GCP inspection. So as I've said, they would ask some prerequisite documents. So those documents need to be submitted. Then GCP inspection dates are being confirmed by the GCP inspector plans. Then the GCP inspection takes place at the schedule site to be inspected, whether it could be a site. Mostly it will be the site. Sometimes it will be the CRO. Sometimes it will be the sponsor companies that directly come to the companies, and they does these GCP inspections. And then the GCP inspection comprises of the same thing again: opening meeting, interviews, visit to facilities, document review, and then followed by a closeout meeting. So it's the same method as that of the audit. So it also has the opening meeting where they set the preferences of what will be the plan, or how they are going to conduct this inspection, and then decide on the interviews, visit the facilities, visit the different vendors, and then do a document review, and then do a closeout meeting. Suppose that a GCP inspection report is generated, it's issued to this one. So you might have heard about, I'm talking about only the FDA. FDA usually do the inspection, they give the notification in 482, and all the findings they give it in the 483. So 482 and 483 are the ones. So once they give the GCP reports, the business will receive, the business in the terms, the company or the CRO or the vendor will receive these inspection reports. And based on that reports, based on the observations, they develop the corrective actions and the preventive action plans, the CAPA plans they does. And then all that they provide it to the GCP inspections back along with the closing letter. And then those are either approved, or it is justifiable, or it can be again a kind of a discussion that happens. And then what happens usually is that if it is a country specific, right? So in the country itself, there will be regulatory leads who will be directly working with regulators. So sometimes they will even go to those go to the regulatory bodies. They directly work with the regulators and make sure that they give all these data, the closing letter, the updates of the observations, the plan, the CAPA plan, whether that will fix the issue. All that is being done. and then the inspection is closed, and then the approval is given. Suppose that only the approval is given. So that's how whole about the inspection process. The follow-up, connect, and the preparation. Okay, now let's come on who conducts these audits and GCP inspections. So as I have said, I was speaking about a lot of these terminologies, the sponsor, the CRO, the regulators, and the third party or vendors, right? So let's see how it happens. This slide will give you a more overview of it. Okay, so when I'm talking about sponsor, if suppose say that there is a company, there are some sponsor companies like could be J&J or Pfizer or Novartis or any sponsor companies you take, Eli Lilly or AstraZeneca, any sponsor companies, audit happens within the QA department. The QA will conduct these internal audits, and they are nothing but the independent auditors. Or sometimes an independent auditor outside from, sometimes it happens like some of the small CROs or some of the small companies, they hire the independent auditor outside, and they make sure that those sponsor audits are conducted. So it could be the auditor within the QA team, or it could be an independent auditor. Okay. Now let's come on the CROs. CROs, if you take, when they talk about audit, the CRO also have a QA setup, and they also does the internal audits. So the QA does the internal audit within the CRO, as well as the independent auditor can also be hired to conduct these internal audits. And sponsor also does the CRO audits. So as I have said, since sponsor has given the trial to CROs, so they are also abide to conduct some of these sponsor audits, and they come to CROs and then they audit the CROs. Again, here the sponsor will only audit the trial which they have given the contract to the CROs. So only those trials only, because CRO will have lot of companies, lot of trials are being worked on, right? So obviously they will not share, because again the regulations, everything is separate for CRO. Okay. If I have to give that presentation, it will go another 2 days time. So they will have a separate CRO group which will do these audits, and they make sure that whenever the sponsor comes, they make sure that only the specific to that sponsor only the data is being shared with this by the CROs to the sponsor for the the sponsor audits. Coming for the third party audit vendor, or third party vendor or third party audit, a QA within the third party vendor can conduct the audit. An independent auditor can conduct the third party vendor audit. A CRO can conduct the third party, because CRO might have contracted the subcontractors to the third party also, right? So even CRO have the ability to do the qualification and requalification of the vendors. And also the sponsor can also conduct the audits within the vendor teams. Okay, hope you are clear with this. Then regulatory inspections, it's very simple. Regulatory inspection, central regulatory agency will do this, or local regulatory agency will do this, health authority will do this, or else ethics committee will do this. So these are the regulatory inspections. These are mainly they come from the regulations or regulatory bodies. There could be a central regulatory, local regulatory, health authorities. Some health authorities can also come and do the audits, provided again they have all the subject to the notification. They are supposed to conduct these audits. They have the valid reasons for it, and all that comes into the place. And ethics committee, obviously, ethics committee will do some of these regulatory inspections, some of the audits, again specific to the preclinical trials, some of the clinical trials. I mean, not some of the clinical trials, all the clinical trials where the ethics committee is responsible for giving the approval only in terms of the sites. Okay, so hope you understand now that what I'm talking about: the sponsor, the CROs, the third party vendor audits, and the regulatory audits or regulatory inspections. Okay, so I think we are much close to end of the slides. Maybe like 2 or 3 slides might be there next now. So let's see now what are the GCP routine findings we observe. Like kind of, if you see the essential documents, the documents which are generated like ETMF documents or the TMF was not ready for the inspection, and relevant documents were either not filed late, or located outside the TMF structure, because most of them, since people are working on the multi trials, they would have not archived in the TMF. They would have kept the local copy in their own desktop, or signatures are not there. It's lately filed. lack of essential documents, receipt of investigational medicinal product shipment to site, source documentation, missing source documents, lack of documents specifying location of the source data, then qualification and training, incomplete training documentation. Again, training is one of, as I have told you, training and qualification, it's one of the key areas. Learning and development is one of the key areas, because incomplete training documentation itself will directly shows that there is a lack of competency issue, or there is a lack of they don't have the ability or the skill or the expertise to generate that, or to complete that task and generate that data. So that's how they come from that, why training and qualification is very important here. So everyone should have been completed those trainings within their learning management systems. And then inappropriate oversight of the vendors, lack of training of the study personnel on trial related procedures, SOPs. So, these are some of the, I have given, like, it could be in contracts or agreements, incomplete contracts in place, responsibility not clearly defined. So again, here contracts has lot of scope. Again, here the project management, comes into picture here. Those are the one, who are looking into these contracts, agreements, or else they will go for a change in scope, CIPs. All that happens there in the project management team. So especially that happens when the sponsor and the CRO is being contracted, or the CRO with the vendors are being contracted. So all the contracts defines what are the roles and responsibilities. Everything needs to be clearly defined. What piece of work we have given for that, how much we are charging, all that piece are there in the contracts and agreements. Again, they are highly confidential documents. So if you're not within that department, right, you are not even authorized to open those documents, or you will not even have those drive access. But as a quality assurance team or the quality management system teams, we will, whenever we do these audits, we get these accesses of all these contracts, agreement, everything. Then organization and personal deficiency regarding the delegation of the trial related duties. So you already know that, right? Delegation tasks will be there, or delegation logs will be there, where it's inappropriately used, who was not supposed to use that. Task performed by the staff not authorized to do so. So all that is been coming as kind of a routine findings. And in terms of trial management, in terms of sponsor, in terms of monitoring, monitor has not identified the number of deficiency on the site, lack of escalation process to resolve issues, identify the monitoring. So again, here, as I have told, clinical trials is very complex, and a lot of teams are working on the trials. So, escalation path, communication channel, everything need to be clearly defined. We work on a lot of the RACI documents, the responsible, accountable, need to be known. All that RACI documents we work on. And if you see the data management, inappropriate systems for reporting protocol violations, data management activities were only undertaken after the clinical conduct of the trial was completed. So there could be a different reasons. Like if you see the CSR's inconsistency between the source data and the data reported in the clinical study report, inaccurate information reported in the CSRs, relevant information is missing in the CSR. So these could be one of the findings. Again, I have just given you an overview to understand, because we talk more of the findings, right? I just wanted to give an overview that what kind of different findings that comes here. Okay, so now we'll talk about the grading. So since I was talking about what was the critical, major, minor, and comments, right? So the grading is the same for audits as well as inspections. Both have the same thing. Critical is nothing but, the critical finding is nothing but, when we identify this as a critical finding, this is directly a GCP violation or a serious breach of violation or a serious breach, and the risk impact is the highest. And just imagine, when I'm telling the risk impact is highest, even it goes up to CEOs. It could be any big companies I'm talking about. When we call it as a critical issue, when there is a serious breach, there is a serious non-compliance, it's very critical. And then it's nothing but the conditions, practices, or processes that adversely affect the rights, safety, or well-being of the trial participant, and or the quality of the integrity of the data that's been generated, or it could be the endpoints also. So again, here we are talking about the subject safety. So subject safety is the one. Subject safety, rights, ethics, well-being, trial participation, all are same. I mean, all are equally important. So whenever we tell the critical, which means that these practices are adversely affecting the rights and safety of well-being. Whereas major means conditions or practices or processes that might adversely affect. So you see the difference, that are directly adversely affecting, and in the major you see the statement as that might adversely affect. So if it is not corrected, then next moment that the major criticality will move to the critical criticality, or the serious breach will happen. So again, that's the same thing. The major, it might adversely affect the right, safety, or well-being of the trial participation and the quality of the integrity of the data. Minor and others, we call it as, in inspections we call it as others, and in audits we call it as minors. Conditions or practices or processes that would not be expected to adversely affect the right, safety, or well-being of the trial participation and or the quality of the quality and the integrity of the data. So again, here, see, the data integrity, data privacy, and there is one more terminology. I'm not able to remember it. Those are very key areas. Like data integrity is one of the key area, because anything that's tampering in the data integrity is nothing but you're directly tampering the endpoints, the clinical trials, the regulations, everything. And hope you all know the cause of these deliberated tamperings, right? So FDA, you might know it, FDA or EMA or India, DCGI, CDC, CDSCO. If there is a direct tampering, it's a criminal prosecution can also happen. I mean, I don't want to go into that area of the jurisprudence or the intellectual properties rights or the law part. That's again a different entire setup in the companies that's been running parallelly. So hope you understand that seriousness, that the companies are liable for a lot of things, when they do all these things. So as soon as there is a liabilities that comes up there, it could be criminal prosecution, then the regulations, then the environmental, everyone will pitch in, and then they start reviewing, and then they start digging in there. Okay, so data integrity, data privacy are very, very important. Data privacy is very important in terms of ICF data that's being generated, right? Informed consent form. So informed consent form is very important data, the document where before conducting the trial, we will have to make sure that the signature is taken by the signature is taken from the subjects or the patients, or in case if it's a minor, then the equally responsible person signature is taken, to make sure that they are aware of what happens in the clinical trial, what we are going to generate the data, what we are going to do with that data, or how we are sharing that data to others. It could be, and then the data privacy comes in terms of their personal data is being shared, because how much data policy is being worked on. So data privacy is one of the key policies in any of the companies, and we talk a lot about that. See, even if I'm getting hired to a company, and if my data needs to be verified, I mean, as per that company, if my data is getting verified by the third party vendor, so for that also I'll have to give the authentication, or I'll have to give the authorization that the third party can check my data and then they validate my data. Until unless that, again, the data privacy policy comes here. So nobody can take my data, because when I'm telling my data, which means very of my personal data, it could be my family data, it could be my financial statements, it could be my banking statements, it could be my lot of different data, what we give it to the companies, right? So data privacy is again one of the very key area that's happening in not only in the clinical industry, but across IT industry, across corporate cultures, across corporate industries, across different country, across different companies. So data privacy is one of the booming area of now, what I see. So that's what we talk about the data integrity. And then comments, the observations might lead to suggestions on how to improve quality or reduce the potential for a deviation to occur in the future. It's nothing but the comments saying that if this is not being improved, it might fall as a deviation or an issue, is what we decide. And those kind of a comments is being given. So basically, in terms of audits and inspection grading, criticality is very, very important. And as I have said, top down people will come there, or the vice presidents. Only you can see those names in there, because it's a serious breach, it's a serious non-compliance. The impact is huge. All that will happen. Major also is also very important when It's not that they are not seeing the leadership is not seeing into this. The leadership is looking into this, but not to an extent of the criticality. Because criticality issue, the moment we consider that as a critical, which means the process itself will change, because the serious, whether it's a serious breach, it's a serious non-compliance, GCP potential GCP non-compliance, we'll have to categorize that, and then we'll have to do the triage meeting, whether we'll have to involve the regulatories, because it could be an impact on the subject loss. So whether we should include the regulatories in the discussions, all that will happen in that criticality finding, and then the major, minor, and the comments. So in the nutshell, it's not that easy what I have just told now. It comes with a lot of experience. And then usually in the audits and inspection team, a lot of people come with huge experience. I mean, I haven't seen anybody with very less experience, and they are doing the audits, and maybe they can support the audits. They can do the support, audit support, or inspection support. They may help in developing an audit plan. They may help in during the audit conduct. All that they can do, but not in terms of an individual lead auditor or a co-auditor or the direct EMA or a USFT or a regulation support. They will not be doing that. So people usually come with a lot of experience, and then they do work in these large scale areas. Okay, so as I've said, these are some of the ISO/GCP guidelines I have mentioned. Go through these guidelines. I mean, if you really want to come to clinical trials, if you are potential and you want to, pursue your career there, go through these guidelines. These guidelines are very, very important. Each and every guidelines are important. At least you should know that what this E6, why is this E6 important? What are the like we do newspaper reading, right? The headlines, and then we assess whether we should go to that headlines or not, right? I mean, we should go to the deeper section of those headlines or not. Like that, you try to read those sections, something that's fascinating. You just go through that individual points, sub points, and then go through those review. And then you understand, and then try to apply it practically. And see again, I'll tell to many of the people, right? Try to see how it's applied. Mainly, we have to see the application perspective. Once we see the application perspective, you go back to the reverse engineering, and then you arrive to what you're starting the point. So that's much more easier for you guys. So go through these E3, E6, E7, E8. These are very basic guidelines. Anyone have to know it. Okay, so again, I am also a reader like you. I also, because it keeps revising, it's keep updating. You'll have to you'll have to you will have to do a lot of upscalings every day, in and out, every year in and out. It's not that I'm aware of it, and one fine day it's not there, and altogether a different new principle, because we have all seen how the COVID happened, and then how we worked, and then what was the impact on the clinical trials. A lot of things we have learned. A lot of guidelines had come after the COVID had hit. So it's like a learning process. So go through these guidelines, QSEM guidelines, and then try to understand the clinical trials in a holistic way. Try to understand why am I doing. Again, as I've said, one thing earlier in my presentation is that if I'm doing something and if it is not written anywhere, then which means that I'm deviating it. That's it. So it's nothing. There is no any further question on that. That if you're done something and it is not documented, or it's not you're not followed something and you have done something, then it is wrong. So we call it as a wrong. Either you're done a wrong something, or you don't know what to do, or you don't know where to go and see that, or there is a gap within the guidelines or within the process itself, that the process itself is not there. So make sure that go through these guidelines and focus on your things, and see where you want to have your career. So with that, that's it what I had. I know it's a long time. It's almost like 2 hours, but I knew that this would take a bit of time. I was speaking with Manoj the other day, but Manoj told me that it's not like a time constraint. So that is the reason I covered these things totally together.
Yeah, it's on record, so absolutely no time constraint. Those who are really interested to learn, they'll learn from the recording also. That's the objective of these seminars also, right? All these recordings are available. So thank you so much, Deepak. It was such a, vast topic. I never thought, personally, I never knew that, so many things happen. Of course, I'm in medical writing for a long time, but then have never participated in any direct, clinical trial related content writing directly. So it's such a vast topic, audits and inspection readiness involves so much. I was not aware. So in fact, I would like to request you here that, we might have to take some more sessions to break down these individual topics later on, so that we can make it more interesting and, make it more smaller topics, like bite topics, maybe going.
That would be more easier. Even I was thinking.
Yeah, we'll do that. Maybe with your, consent, I'll just announce to the audience that we'll, in future, definitely we'll plan that, and we'll have bite-sized content on clinical trials, because you come with so much of vast experience, right? And personally, if I have to say my own thing, I made so much of notes today, but it's difficult to, recollect everything. I'll have to probably watch the replay again couple of times, I'll say, to, understand the entire aspect of audits and inspections for better understanding of myself. So thank you so much, Deepak, for simplifying the whole steps and providing us an overview of the entire steps that happens. And I'm sure participants who are still there with us, they got a lot of clarity today, and this will definitely help us. So participants, in one word, what do you describe Deepak's today's presentation? Just one word. How do you describe today's presentation? Just put in the chat box. Let's see how many of you are still there with us. Yeah. Workshop. Yeah. We need a workshop model.
We need a workshop. Yeah. In fact, I was part of these pharmacy week workshops, right? So I used to give in Manipal, I've given in JSS, I've given in some colleges.
Excellent. So it's basically a workshop model, but we tried to create everything in a nutshell of 2 hours, which is practically not possible for such a vast topic. So thank you so much, everyone. If you have any questions, let's take some questions. New learning. Amarnath says new learning. Excellent. What about others? Preetham has raised the hand. So Preetham, I'll unmute you. Maybe we'll just have a quick discussion. Unmuting Preetham. Yes, Preetham, go on. Thank you for switching on the video as well.
So hello, Deepak. Hello, Manoj. It was a lot of information. Thank you so much for going to the path of audits. So that's really helpful. Although audits, we all are involved in audits somehow or the other.
Yeah. Exactly.
So that's the thing. So clinical trials. Yeah. So as you already told about contractual agreements. So if it is, because I'm an agreement person, I'm more concerned on agreements and knowing more about it. So there are clinical trial agreements. There are safety management plans, which is basically for clinical trials only. There are service provider agreements. So in that contractual agreement, all the agreement comes into picture?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay.
And that depends on the scope of the audit. So suppose the scope of the audit itself is in that way, that, that's the requirement of the contractual agreement audit itself, then they will go more deeper into those contracts, agreements, their renewals, scope of the change in scope, all that happens.
Yeah, and as you already told that it is a kappa and all. So if your all the confidentiality permits, can you give me an idea of effectiveness check which is done as a part of kappa plan for a clinical trial effectiveness check?
So it's applied for a lot of places. Like suppose say there is an issue that has happened and you have already done a root cause analysis for it and you have already done a kappa for it. So corrective action is also done, preventive action is also done, and you are aware that the reoccurrence is very low. You have discussed, you have decided, you have updated that the reoccurrence is very low, or say that the reoccurrence could be high also, right? So suppose say that the reoccurrence is high and we want to ensure that the across trials are being monitored, and you want to do a kind of a effectiveness check. So effectiveness check could be kind of a sample based assessments. Okay. And then you kind of take a samples and then do the assessments. Suppose say that you keep some criteria that what are you looking for, 100% compliance or 95 to 100% compliance. And for that 95 to 100% compliance, how do you want to decide whether out of 10 documents, 9 documents should be compliance, then you say it as 95 to 100%, something like that. You decide on that scale of effectiveness check. Okay?
So a timeline for that, because
that could be 3 months, 6 months, 1 year. It could be quarter based. So that depends on. Okay, again here there are two pieces here. One is something that's impacting a trial immediately has to be done. There is no any second thought about it. But doing the effectiveness check regularly to make sure that all other trials are making sure that they are being compliant or they are being utilizing that effectiveness check is your routine part of your check, and it could be 3 months, 6 months, or based on the quarter also you can do a sampling, you can or the impacted trials itself. When we do the root causes, right, we'll get those impacted trials or impacted processes. That also you can use that in the effectiveness check.
I have another short question, but it might be it is. I just wanted to have an understanding for not an understanding, but if you are quite okay to share experience of focus audit, especially for clinical trials, in your humongous experience which you have. So, what is the idea? Why it was a focus audit, and what was the outcome? So, if you can guide us on that.
So for cause audit, I have not experienced, but I have read, I have known, because a lot of there were like one or two companies which I don't want to name it here.
Yeah, so that's okay, but the idea was to understand why it was happen, why did it happen, and what was the outcome. So that is the for cause audit, right? So for cause audit is a higher funda thing, which all we know if you are in the system. But just want to have an experience if you
Yeah,
have
but
it.
what I have read, like one of the sponsor company, right? One of the CRO company, a small, mid-size, small CRO it could be. It had, they had, they did all violations, whatever the possible violations are there, they have
Yeah,
done it.
there is a news nowadays. Sorry to
Informed
interrupt.
consent
There is a news
signatures.
nowadays which FD has done it, and that organization has validated all this possibility of the availability and all, and that was shoot in
Yeah,
very recent times. It has happened.
yeah.
So that's one thing. So yeah, so yeah.
So
Thank you.
lot of things happens,
A
and then
lot of thing happens because I prefer to be a avid reader, so I read a lot. So I got this news for that's why, because I thought you might have an experience of focus audit, even if routine audit also. So routine audit, you are doing it.
routine audits are okay, but for cause audits are very surprise audits where you don't even know why they have come.
Yeah, so that's the true thing. So if it is a clinical trial contractual agreement, or I must say clinical trial agreement, wherein there are multiple clinical trials happens, right? When one agreement is one is your product, your organization product, and another is your comparator, which is competitive. So that product is taken from some other organization. So that leads to a clinical trial agreement that if you get a safety data for our product, then you send it to us. So in that portfolio, all the audit is also incorporated in that portfolio of clinical trial agreements or contractual agreements.
Yes, that's correct. It will be important. It will be important. So how it
So
will
we
happen?
are not
I'll tell
leaving
you.
audit in anywhere. Everywhere is because audit is in a very nominal document of agreements. Audit is always there. Okay.
And then it will be usually it also depends on the budget also, right? It's like a smaller budget. Obviously, CRO will also not agree to do that. So it
Yeah.
depends on the budget also. If the budget is allowing the CROs to conduct the trials within those contracted trials, then the CRO are definitely abide, and then the agreements happens in that way, and then the audits are conducted. But again, that depends on the
Uh,
budget.
yeah. Thank you, sir. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thanks, Pritam.
All right. Thank you for asking, Preetham. One more question we have in the chat box. It is from Amarth. He says, can you please explain independent auditor?
Yeah, independent auditor are like kind of a consultant auditors, or they could be an consulting company. There could be a consultant auditor or audit, or a consulting company where they have a lot of auditors. Okay, and the sponsor will again have the contractual agreement for it, that what needs to be conducted, everything that will have that contract will have been signed off by the consultant and the sponsors or the vendors, and then the individual independent auditor who is nowhere part of the company, they will be from the consulting payroll or the consulting he would be in the consulting onboarded. and then that person will we call it as an independent auditor. They actually goes to the CROs or the sponsor. Then especially this happens, the independent auditors mainly happens on the ISA audits, because ISA audits different in different countries. You have regional specific audits or regional specific local languages, and then travel time, they can't travel there. So usually these ISA audits, some of the ISA audits, we have these independent auditors also doing that, and they provide us the report. Suppose that.
All right. So Preetham says, can we also reframe that as a freelance auditor? This guy
Yeah, freelance auditor,
yes.
They can do it as an individual level, but also they can do it at a consultancy level. The consultant company will be there.
Excellent. Okay, perfect. So guys, any other questions, please ask in the chat box. We are there for a few more minutes. We are already surpassed all the timelines. Time is normally 2 to 3:30 max. But then yes, if you have some more questions, Deepak is kind enough to be present for some more time, and we can answer you some more questions. So thank you, Amar, for asking that question. We had asked one word for the entire presentation. So Tarak on YouTube says, one word is documentation is very important.
That's true.
So yeah,
there's one question I'm seeing from Roshni, I think.
All right.
What is higher for B.Pharm freshers?
Okay. Yeah, I missed out that. Okay.
Yeah, I mean, what largely now happening, I mean, I'm giving this information to everyone. So now what is happening largely is that all these CROs and sponsors are coming up with the campus hiring. So they are looking more of a campus hiring process for the freshers. And freshers getting directly is very difficult. I mean, to be very honest, you will get the companies, but not the MNCs or very big companies you will get, because most of these big companies or the MNC companies or the large corporate companies, they have the tie-up with their colleges, and they will obviously do a campus recruitment, because if you consider Novartis, if you say IQVIA, LabCorp, or any company you take, they have the contract with they have the connect with these colleges, and then they directly do the campus hiring. So again, that piece I don't want to touch, because that's a separate topic what we can discuss further. But as such, Novartis will hire the freshers, but that depends on which college you have been qualified and whether you are part of that the boarding or the hiring process, or the campus hiring process.
I think it holds good for most of the companies when it comes to hiring process. And networking is very, very important when it comes to the overall hiring process. And if you are a fresher and you want a referral to happen in any of these companies, then one of the best ways is to network on LinkedIn or different other platforms. So get connected to your college seniors, maybe people who are in these companies, and reach out through them. That will help you out. All right.
So anything that comes up with me also, I mean, fine, I can refer as well.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. All right. So any other questions, guys? We are there for another few seconds. If you have any questions, please raise your virtual hand, and then I'll unmute you. If not, then we are good to go. We have already completed close to 2 hours, 15 minutes.
Too much.
Yeah, too much. And too much of knowledge is again dangerous, in one day. It'll not be so nice. All right. So thank you everyone for your time. Thank you so much, Deepak, for that, wonderful presentation you gave. And it had a lot of takeaways. Personally, if I have to learn audits and inspections, I think this is one video that I should be watching multiple times. Yeah. And to all of you who are registered on Zoom, and you'll be getting a recording copy. And Preetham has also shared a couple of references for us. So I'll be sharing that also along with the email. So watch out for my email and you'll get some details. And I'll also send you the LinkedIn profile link of Deepak. So please feel free to connect with him on LinkedIn and continue your networking with him later on. So this learning should always be a continuous process. It does not end here. It should continue henceforth also. Deepak keeps sharing a lot of information. So follow him and keep learning from him. And if you have any specific questions, don't hesitate. Please ask and write to him or Preetham or even myself. If you can send an email, we'll love to try to answer. If we don't know, then we'll reach out to experts from the domain and we'll try to get the answers. None of us are experts here. Of course, there are industry experts with respect to topics. So pharmacovigilance, Preetham can answer. Clinical trials, Deepak can answer. Medical marketing or medical writing, some aspects I can answer definitely. So perfect. Thank you so much, Deepak. Thank you, Preetham. Thank you, Amar, Divya, Omkar, Prahlad, Roshni, Shamili, Subida, and so many of you watching still on YouTube. Thank you so much for your time. And with this, we come to the end of today's session. We'll meet again coming Saturday at 2 p.m. So this journey continues. We'll have some other topic covered there. And if you have any questions, don't hesitate. Please do ask and then reconnect back with us on LinkedIn. All right. So thank you so much.
Okay. Thank you, everyone. Thank you so much, Manoj, for everything. I mean, that was kind of fun.
Yeah. Pleasure, Deepak, and wish you all a wonderful weekend ahead. And take care. And let's continue learning together. Okay, perfect. Thank you, Divya. Thank you for being present here. It means a lot. And it is a great initiative indeed. This has become possible through people like you and Deepak, Preetham, and all these wonderful speakers who have non-stop, supported me in continuing this journey. Every single Saturday they come here, speak, share their knowledge, and this just continued, right? So even I don't want to stop. Even after pandemic, I didn't stop because people are there who are attending these sessions and they're learning from this session. So why to stop this, right? And many webinars, they stopped after the pandemic stopped, but then this webinar series has continued. This is, I think, 267th webinar.
That's nice.
Since the beginning, of pandemic, we started, and 267th webinar completed today. And this will continue, until I'm here, definitely it will continue. Yeah. So perfect. Thank you so much, all of you. And let's meet again next week. Let's meet again and continue our learning journey. Thank you. Yeah.
Thank you then. Yeah.
Thank you. Yes, Preetham, definitely will complete the 500th one, hopefully. Yes, thank you. So I'm stopping the live session on YouTube. Thank you so much.